Welcome to The Nooner, a daily dispatch of open-ended ideas from J.E. Peterson, but you can call me Jordan. For best results, head over to Substack, where you can sign up to get the Dispatch's Weekly Digest, which includes some extras that I don't share anywhere else. You can find a link to that in the description of this episode. Alright, here's today. Solving comparisons with math. Alright everyone, let's talk about comparisons again. It's honestly one of my favorite topics, because we can't help ourselves. We are incorrigibly hierarchical creatures, no better than, as the other Jordan Peterson famously explained, lobsters. Thankfully, we're a hell of a lot smarter than lobsters, so if we really think about it, we can cut through the choking fog of our crustaceous DNA and transcend the stupid comparisons. One way to do this is with math. Stay with me. Think about an axis along which you are tempted to make a comparison, or, in other words, some metric you might use to evaluate one human being against another. How about conventional standards of beauty? Objectively, some people are hotter than others. Don't argue this, it's beneath you. We all know it. It's uncomfortable to admit, but there is a spectrum, an axis if you will, along which people generally fall in terms of how many other people find them attractive. Otherwise there wouldn't be such a thing as Instagram filters, okay? But comparisons are bad, right? Sure, and yet this axis does exist. You have to be pretty delusional or disingenuous to deny it. And the very fact of its existence, and practically everyone's innate ability to see it, invites us to line people up along it and treat them accordingly, which, yes, is obviously bad. So what can we do? Well, I'll tell you what we can do. We can introduce another axis. Because while we can and should all agree that there is such a thing as a hotness axis, we can and should also all agree that human beings cannot be entirely reduced to this one axis. Because of course there's also a money axis. Gratefully, this one is way easier for us to quantify. Everyone's got net worth. What's yours? I bet it's higher than mine. Perhaps you can see where this is going. If you find yourself evaluating yourself, or anyone else, along the hotness axis, then you might as well evaluate them along the money one too. Unfortunately, there are people who are both much hotter and much richer than you, as well as people who are uglier and poorer than you. Great, we're back to where we started. Well, not quite. We forgot about the smartness axis. Are there people who are hotter, richer, and smarter than you? Probably. But with 3 axes, it's getting a lot harder to do these comparisons, isn't it? If we were forced to line up even 10 people in a ranked hierarchy of value based on only those 3 axes, we'd probably argue till the end of time about how exactly to arrange them. Given enough time, you might be able to personally settle on an arrangement in your own mind for about 5 minutes, until you changed your mind for some reason, and that's just 3 axes. Granted, those are the ones that we tend to care and talk and obsess a lot about, but we also know those 3 axes don't even come close to comprehensively representing us. I said this is about math because the trend here is obvious to anyone who's done any higher-level algebra or calculus. An axis is a visual representation of a variable, and we know that the more variables you introduce into an equation, the harder that equation is to solve, to the point of becoming literally impossible. So, the final question here is this. How many axes, or variables, would you need to comprehensively represent a human being? And the answer is, no one knows. But what we do know is that it's a hell of a lot more than 3. Which means that in order to meaningfully compare one human being to another, you'd have to solve an equation with too many variables to be solvable. In short, it is meaningless to compare people along only one axis and impossible along all of them together. Now that we can see the truth, will we stop trying to compare ourselves to everyone along any single oversimplified axis? Of course not. We're lobsters after all. But what we can do, what we must do, is answer our inevitable impulse of comparison with more sophisticated responses. If you liked today's episode, I hope you'll share it with someone. No, I'm not asking you to spam your socials. I mean, obviously you can if you want to, but everyone knows a thoughtful, well-timed message can make all the difference in someone's day. So if the spirit moves, send a text. And if you haven't yet, head over to The Nooner on Substack to get access to the Dispatch's Weekly Digest, including stuff like music recommendations, TMI updates from my personal life, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing I like you more than other people. Okay, that's it for today. See you at noon tomorrow.